So what is a 90-degree push-up or a hollow back press? Well, it's a movement where you're going from a handstand into a bent arm lever. You are controlling the eccentric, controlling the negative portion of the exercise, trying to keep your body as straight as possible, and then pushing from that bent arm lever back up into a handstand. This is 1 rep of the exercise. So you do need to have some basic level of strength to begin this. You should be able to do at least 15 dips, at least 10 pull-ups. You should be able to do at least 20 push-ups. A handstand is not required to begin training for this. However, it's very important that if you do not know how to do a handstand already, you start as soon as you can, because that is going to be your limiting factor later on. So be sure to work on all those weak links and be able to get at least a proper handstand that you can hold for about 10 seconds or so. So the first thing you want to do is get into a planche lean position. If you don't already know how to do this, there are tons of great videos out there on how to practice it, but you're basically getting kind of in a push-up position, but you are hollowing out your body, you are tightening your core, squeezing your glutes, and it's always great to also point your toes as well. Wearing socks makes this easier so you can slide on the floor. Then you, from the planche lean position, you're simply bend down and lean forward. And you want to try to hold this up until 10 seconds. Here, I'm trying to emphasize exactly how I want you to really rotate your arms and stabilize yourself. So the cue that a lot of people get is pointing the elbow pits forward. When you're doing this, you're really rotating the entire arm and engaging as much musculature as possible, because this is going to really help stabilize you. I'll explain a little bit later about how important this is. Now, if you are unable to do this with your feet together, an alternative is going into a straddle position and then leaning forward. This is going to greatly decrease the demands of your upper body to really hold that position. So for the next step, what you want to do is get into a straddle position and lean forward. And what you're doing here is now trying to finally get your feet off the ground, even just for a split second. Just try to do as many reps as this as you can. This is going to really start to build up a lot of strength in your core and upper body. And then eventually you want to move with your feet together and do the same thing. Just always record yourself and try not to arch that lower back. That's very important, okay? Eventually you want to get to the point where you can finally lean forward enough and are able to do some quality holds with your feet fully off the ground. Ideally, you want to get to the point where you can hold this position for at least 10 seconds. So I want to talk a little bit about why I am saying to point your elbow pits forward. This is a cue that is given also a lot in people who do barbell work, like bench pressing or even overhead pressing as well. They often say that you should aim to sort of, when you grab the bar, to try to break it, right? So you're grabbing it and you're like rotating it, rotating your arms, trying to like essentially break the bar in half. That is similar to what I'm trying to get you to do when you're on the ground as well. Because, so now we're going to imagine that this rolling pin is the ground. So you place your hands on the ground, right? And you go into a planche lean position. So your shoulders are protracted, right? Your core is engaged the entire time. And now, from here, you really want to start and do the same thing. So imagine that you're rotating your arms, right? Rotating them, trying to like twist the ground beneath you. Because as you do this, right, you start to engage a lot more of the musculature in your arm and shoulder. By rotating here and then leaning forward, bending the arms, you create a lot of stability in your shoulder joint. You also get a lot of engagement of your tricep and your lat. And that's very important because that tricep and that lat, that tension that's created by squeezing those two together, right? That's what's really holding you up in that position. I will show you exactly from the back as well how this looks, because this is a very important concept. Okay, so like I said here, right? You grab the floor, you're rotating your arms, right? You notice how immediately everything on my upper torso gets flexed as I do that. And then you lower down, bend your arms, and look at the tension that's created right here between the tricep and the lat. That squeezing motion that I'm talking about is what's between both arms, right? So your body is being squeezed by both arms, trying to keep you elevated, and really continues to squeeze you forward. From the back, so you're here, again, you're rotating your arms and shoulders, you're bending in, you're really like engaging your back, your entire back musculature as well. That's really adding to that stability. And really, this is what you're practicing when you're going into that bent arm lever position. Try to every time engage these muscles appropriately, because that's what's going to give you that core strength over time, and it'll help to translate to better upper body strength, and it will transfer to eventually getting the hollow back press or 90-degree push-up. I haven't practiced this in a while, so I am a little bit shaky here, but this next step you can do either on the rings or on the parallettes. I personally never purchased the parallettes, but the goal here is to get into that bent arm position, and then what you're going to do is try to get your hips above your shoulders. They don't have to be directly vertical, but just enough so where you feel that pressure in your upper body, and you will feel it in your core as well. As you lower your hips, you'll notice that that part is actually very challenging. For me, sometimes it's actually more challenging to control the negative than lean forward and get my hips up. And this is going to start to condition you to be able to handle yourself going from a handstand into a bent arm hold. And now, if you've made it this far, you're finally on to one of the biggest milestones of this exercise, and that is going to be finally transitioning from a handstand into a bent arm lever. Doing multiple reps of this is finally the last step, really, of all of these progressions, because this is going to give you the eventual coordination and strength to finally go from a handstand into a bent arm lever, and then pushing up again from a bent arm lever into the handstand. So a lot of people that do calisthenics don't do as many weights, and I did myself, but I realized that adding the overhead press to my routine gave me a lot of shoulder strength. And it's important that you get that mobility and technique to do these right early on, because it's going to pay dividends later on in your hollow back press or 90-degree push-up training. It's going to help with that lockout at the top, which is one of the most challenging parts of that movement. So I also like to finish my day here with dips. Dips are very important. Eventually, you want to start adding weight as well, because that's going to give you a lot of chest and tricep strength, which you'll need for that lockout position at the top of the handstand push-up. So the last thing I want to talk about is finally putting all of this together. Initially, early on in your training, you want to focus a lot on form and the bent arm hold. And ideally, you should also add that as a superset to a couple of other exercises that you do. I highly recommend that you work on the handstand, particularly if you don't have a good handstand. There's tons of great handstand tutorials out there, and be sure to get started then as soon as possible. And the other thing that's going to really help accelerate your strength is doing some weighted work. So I like weighted dips and overhead press. Particularly the overhead press is going to help a lot with transitioning also from that bent arm hold into a handstand. So be sure to add those in, work on that form, and try to at least do 2 dedicated push days a week. So 2 days a week where you're just focusing on these types of exercises. And then the rest of the days you should not neglect your pulling as well. So pull-ups, or if you like to do front lever work, you can add that in as well. And also do legs for at least once a week. I know I did neglect leg days some days, and I do regret that, so don't be like me. If you have any questions, feel free to message me on Instagram. You can even record your form as well, and I can help point out what you can do to improve yourself. So I will be starting residency soon, and I'll be really busy, but if I have some time, I might get back to you. Thank you for watching.